All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Here's Johnny.
Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
The power of Christ compels you.
This is my boomstick.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Good evening and welcome to Shiver, a horror movie podcast. We are your hosts.
I'm Daniel DeBona.
Yes, you are. And I'm David Ulloa. And we are here, as you can see. Daniel's got his Bama Christmas hat on.
In the playoff, baby. Suck at Florida State.
Yeah, do suck at Florida State. On this one, we can agree. My Eagles were nowhere near.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we had a couple weeks off. I couldn't, then you couldn't, then I couldn't, and
right.
And now we're back because we both can.
Right. Because we're here. And so we've decided to eschew the movies that we were going to do. Instead of pushing them back, we'll just push them far back, and we're going to kickstart our holiday season here, and we're starting with one that Daniel, this one was your suggestion. So yes.
in a segment that we're going to call "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," why don't you give us a little bit of background on our movie, The Mean One?
So The Mean One is one that it's a movie that kept popping up, like Amazon and all these places kept suggesting it, especially after like I rented Blood and Honey back in the summer. And it was always hanging around in the background. So we started kind of looking at Christmas movies we could do. And I was like, all right, I've seen stills for this so many times. I have to watch this movie. And the thing about this movie was it was a complete and total crapshoot. We had absolutely no idea what we were getting into it, what we were getting from it. So here's what's amazing about being a horror fan. When you love this genre the way that we love this genre, then you get the wonderful and awesomeness that comes with these movies that get released that are art. You get Rosemary's Baby, and you get these Ari Aster films, and you get these things where you sit down and you watch it and you go, this is cinema, and you love that. But when you love it the way we love it, you occasionally get a movie like The Mean One that is not good. But it is so much fucking fun to watch.
Yeah.
This movie was everything that Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey wished it could have been.
Absolutely.
This movie leaned hard into the camp. It had so much fun with it. Like Pooh, Blood and Honey actually was able to use all the right names and stuff. This one was like towing with the lines of legality and the Seuss estate, and they pushed absolutely as far as they could go and had a lot of fun with it. This movie is ridiculously campy, very gory, and just fun. It's always nice to go back and see one of these and be reminded that the movies that don't take themselves seriously within this genre can be fun to watch. I enjoyed the hell out of watching this. And yeah, no, it is not worthy of a single award. Like, don't even put this thing up for like Razzies. Don't just mainstream, just don't even acknowledge this thing exists. Everybody leave it the fuck alone and just let the people like us let this thing fall upon us naturally. And find it and enjoy it the way I did last night. I had a blast watching this.
I did too. And, when you first suggested it and I saw the poster for it, I thought this is probably going to be like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of too.
And I thought, you know what? We've committed to this thing. We've done a lot of the good Christmas movies. So, all right, let's do this. And I was so pleasantly surprised. To me, it was like watching Santa Sleigh last
Yeah.
year, which I hadn't seen before because I had written it off as just, schlock.
Right.
And it is, but it's really good schlock. I kept thinking throughout the whole movie that if this movie had even like half of its budget more, if it had like 150% budget, it would have been so much better.
Right.
And it does lean into its low budget quality, and I think it is better for that. If this had been done on like a Violent Night level, I don't know if it would have hit as well. But because it really leaned into that, it felt like a sci-fi movie.
Yes, it felt like a sci-fi original.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's not shot on professional cameras and the lighting isn't the greatest. But to me, that was part of the magic of this movie.
Yeah.
Where once I was done with it, I kind of regretted not watching this thing with my son.
Right.
Because I feel like he really would have enjoyed this. It manages to be very funny, despite the fact that I don't know a single one of these actors.
Correct.
And I go back to that point that we talked about with Talk to Me. Why do we keep using the same actors in all these movies? Throw in some of these people here. Now you're going to recognize only one name, and you're not going to recognize the face, which is David Howard Thornton, who is the clown. And so, like, that was the only thing that coming into this movie, I thought, okay, well, that's a positive, because I don't know the director. I don't know any of the cast. I don't know any of the crew. So, like, I'm going into this thing completely blind, except for David Howard Thornton.
Right.
And so I was like, man, and you know what? We'll get to talking about him, but I'm so glad that we did this movie, because what a fun time.
And so, I mean, when we start to talk about all the fun that it is, I mean, we got to tell kind of what the premise of this movie is. So, in a segment that we're calling The Nuisance, if you're watching live, there's a great little visual pun there. I mean, take us through just kind of how this movie played out. Like, how did they turn The Grinch into a horror movie?
You hit the nail on the head at the beginning of the show, where you said that, like, they kind of towed that line really well. There were moments where I felt dirty.
Yeah.
Where I felt like I was watching something I shouldn't be watching. Where I was like, do I need to mail like the Geisel family like $1 or something? Because like I feel like I should. But man, I mean, the story, the premise is so simple. There's almost no story.
Almost none.
There's almost none. There's enough of a framing to make a story possible, but you almost don't even need that.
Right.
I love the way that they start this out with, like, the story of Cindy, who.
Cindy,
I love that.
who.
I was like, oh, that's the way they're gonna do this. Fucking fantastic. Where she kind of turns the Grinch into this like great guy, right? And his heart grows 3 sizes too big, and it's like, okay, awesome. So now, but then it's like, nah, but that's not exactly how it happened. And then they show us the alternate version of this story. And I think that that's such a great way to start this off, where it's like, the story. Now we're going to give you the different version of the story, and we're going to show you what a Grinch really would do.
Right.
And to turn him into essentially a cryptid, I thought was a brilliant move, because to me, the rest of it almost played out like a Hallmark movie, where it's like, Cindy's coming back into town for the first time, and here's the guy.
Here's the small town guy,
the small town cop, right? And like the spirit of Christmas is gone, and they need to bring the spirit of Christmas back. It was very, very Hallmark, and because of the low budget quality, it even looked like a Hallmark movie. And I don't watch these movies, but it very well could be that that's where they went to find the cast for this. I have no idea, but if I saw like even a one scene of this at my parents' house, I would assume that they were watching a Hallmark Christmas movie.
Yes.
It was to me, it was just the story exists only to get the Grinch, or the mean one, from murder scene to murder scene. And it starts off okay with the murder of Cindy's mom, and then escalates. And I think that I was really enjoying the movie, but I was kind of just along for the ride until one specific scene, which is the scene in the bar with all the Santas from
The
SantaCon.
SantaCon scene.
That scene, like, and that's where I finally thought, you know what? If this thing had any money behind it, it could be amazing. Because with what little budget they had, they were able to turn what should have been a really bad scene, like it should not have worked, into something that was well choreographed, where the violence was brutal, and it still managed to be funny because like he's whipping around these canes that are made of plastic,
Right.
and you know that they're made of plastic, but the way that like there's a brutality there, and Thornton doesn't play the mean one the same way he plays Art the Clown, and we'll get more to him later, but I think in that scene we really start to see him have fun with this, because it's really the first time that we get to see him and see the makeup. And that's another way in which this blew Blood and Honey out of the water, because Blood and Honey, like, they looked fucking stupid.
Yeah.
They look terrible. It's awful. We've gone on record and said it. It's the worst movie we've ever done on the show. I was expecting that level of production here, and it wasn't. It wasn't at all. So story-wise, it's okay, but it to me, it's okay because it's not about the story. It's about the characters that exist here. And every single one of these characters is ripped right out of a Hallmark movie and twisted enough so that it makes sense in this world. And yet it feels like they could also be real Who's from Whoville, because it definitely does have that feel to it. But it's also almost like Springfield, where like you've got like the drunkard who's like, he's doing, and then to
the
me,
bumbling sheriff.
The bumbling sheriff was like the best character here, because like he feels justified in everything it is that he does. I loved everything about this movie. The only thing I didn't love was that it was so good that I feel like it was held back by its budget.
Yeah, I mean, because this thing was made for $600,000,
which is nothing.
Yeah, which is nothing in terms of making a movie. But
I'm sure if you and I pulled our like funds and like our retirement together, we could make a movie for $600,000.
Right. But you're absolutely right in the fact that this movie was just fun. You go to that SantaCon scene where he's just killing all of these guys in the bar. And he, like, at one point takes the like plastic candy cane and like runs through somebody wearing an inflatable Christmas tree suit, just all this ridiculous stuff. But even though the way the killings were happening was comical, the actual scene that fits right in any horror movie, because it was a terrible, brutal multiple murder. But then they still remind you that it's just goofy fun when they do the thing where like the guy driving the bus is out on his phone and you see the mean one go by the window, and then when he turns, he's like behind the door and you can't see him anymore. They did so much fun little stuff like that throughout the movie that when you get to the climactic, Cindy versus mean one fight at the end, you love the fact that it's so cheesy and corny. You love the fact that all of her weapons look like somebody just spent $40 on a Christmas skin for all of their gear in Call of Duty, right? Like that's you love that moment, because once you get there, that's the only way that they can keep escalating, is to make that stuff so ridiculous. What's that? A Christmas ornament? No, it's a grenade that looks like a Christmas ornament. The entire Christmas tree is just explosive. They did so much fun. They just enjoyed themselves, and they set out to make something that you watch with your friends and you have some drinks and you laugh, and you're laughing with it. This is a movie that is in on its own joke. You don't have to make fun of this movie because it's making fun of itself constantly. So you're in a position where you're laughing with the movie, and that adds to the quality of it. I love just so many little things, but all of the times that they went right up to that, how many words can we steal straight from the book without plagiarizing line? Right? They get right up to it. My absolute favorite is when Doc kept almost saying Grinch,
Grinch,
and he
yeah.
would
Finch,
say
yeah.
grr, and then the bartender would be like, Finch, order for Finch. It's like this see, like that. That's what I was looking for in this movie. And then there would be like just little spots here and there where it would be like 8 straight words, like one couplet from
Yeah.
the book, and they'd be like, all right, now let's back off. Okay, now we got to tell our own thing. They never called it Mount Crumpet, but it looked exactly like
it,
Mount
yeah.
Crumpet has always been portrayed. Yes, they didn't call him the Grinch, they said we just call him the mean one. And
Even one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish made an appearance.
yes. They said that they said his heart's an empty hole. They grabbed all of those things from that Boris Karloff movie and from the book, and they just, it was there's no other word to describe it other than fun. Like I was just sitting there watching it, and I kept laughing, and then the stark transitions into these kill scenes when he kills the mayor of Newville, who, by the way, okay, sure, I get that your car broke down, but whose car has ever broken down and the volume on their radio gone to max and then been unable to change the station? But whatever. So her car breaks down and she is trying to get away because she has been setting up for hikers to come to Newville to feed to the mean one, to try to keep him off the streets. The sheriff has basically outlawed Christmas, like a Hallmark movie type thing, like you said. that is absolutely something that would happen in a Hallmark movie. Christmas Footloose, whatever you want to call it.
That's what I thought was Christmas Footloose.
And so
I was talking to Ralph today, and he was like, "Oh, it's like the Prowler. They haven't had Christmas in 20 years." And I was like, "That's exactly what it is."
There
it's My Bloody Valentine. It's the Prowler, and now you put the mean one in.
Yes. And so she's like trying to work on her car. Her car is blasting Christmas music, so she knows she's toast if she doesn't get on the road soon. And he shows up and like bites a chunk out of her face, wraps a bunch of her campaign stickers around her head. So again, kind of Art the Clown style. It's comical but brutal. Drags her back and then slams the trunk on her head until it decapitates her. Like,
I loved that scene. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
I love that scene because the expected thing is for him to slam the hood of the car onto her.
Right.
And decapitate her. So when he pulls her out of there and bites a chunk of her face off, you're like, oh, fuck, this is not going the way I think it is. And then strangles her with the stickers. And then he does end up doing what you want him to do, which is slamming it, but it's the trunk.
Yes.
It was such a it was such a reversal. And then no, it's not. It was so perfect, I think.
Yeah, so that was all that was spectacular. The way that he kills her dad at the beginning, where you just get kind of those glimpses, because another element of this movie is the fact that the mayor and the sheriff are trying to convince everybody that this is not the Christmas killer, right? That there's no monster out there. This is just an unfortunate thing that happened. And so they're constantly trying to cover it up. He's got the green ski mask. He's like, oh, it was probably just a guy who took this off, like just all of those ridiculous things that it was a lot like it was while it was just the Grinch and it was a horror movie, there were a lot of things that were also just satirical of what you would find in a run-of-the-mill B horror movie, which, again, they were so in on everything they were doing. Like, they meant for this all to be a joke. The Kobler brothers, Flip and Finn, who wrote this thing, I can only imagine this had to have started as just a late drunken like Christmas season night, right? Where like their
Yeah.
kids had fallen asleep and they're still watching the Grinch and they're half a bottle of Buffalo Trace in and they're like, man, that guy would be a great horror movie killer. And they wake up the next day and there's like there's just a paper towel and they're looking at it. It's like, what did we do last night? It's like, I don't know. This just says Grinch kills everyone. We gonna do something with that? We can do something with that.
Sure.
Yeah, let's go. It was just everything about this stacked up to, like you said, like Santa's sleigh. I expected absolutely nothing out of Santa's sleigh, and it over delivered. I expected nothing out of this, and again, it over delivered. And yeah, for 600,000, that's one, like, what are they called, angel donor or whatever, right? Like
Right.
you
Yeah.
just find the right guy who like needs a tax write off, and you make this movie. So they did everything right. The special effects, where they did digital versus where they did practical, was all very well thought out.
Mhm.
They didn't overdo either one. They seemed to use just enough CGI that they didn't have to use a huge chunk of their budget on special effects.
And it
But
was
the
only when
scenes,
needed.
yeah, but the scenes where we were going to get in there and we were going to see it, we got some good practical effects. It was impressive, just beginning to end.
Yeah, I think it really was. And to me, that was like it was like the cherry on top, because a lot of times these really low budget movies, what they end up doing is going so far into the CGI thing
Right.
that nothing looks good. And they managed to mix that practical and CGI thing to make it actually work.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, well, it would have cost so much money to get all that like corn syrup and all that in there. Like, yeah, just use a little splatter. And to me, it almost, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into CGI stuff, but to me, it was almost like it was chaos that was happening on screen when the CGI was happening. And like, so it didn't have to be this like precise looking thing. That's what they did the practical effects for. To me, it just worked. And then I think that the way to end it was just perfect.
Yeah. Again, the very end brings it right back around to that Hallmark thing. They're in a little town Christmas village and all the lights are back. I mean, and they did it fast as hell because she's still, has fresh wounds from fighting the mean one. But all of a sudden the town's like, hey, Christmas is back. I mean, they even, do the little rhyming couplets. It seemed to happen overnight. And, and then it's just like, boom, Christmas village. And it all popped up. And you're right. You look at that moment where they're walking arm in arm. And if you take away the fact that there are scratches on her face from fighting the mean one, that's the end of a Hallmark movie where the uptight businesswoman is reminded of the magic of Christmas by the small town guy who never got away from home.
Yeah. And the small town guy happens to be Jewish and celebrates Hanukkah.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that for me was just like fantastic. But the other thing about the end is it really kind of, to me, makes a joke out of that ending, the original Grinch ending, because it's like, if your heart grows 3 sizes, you've got a heart condition.
Yes.
And like, that is what happens to him. And it's like, no, his heart fucking explodes. Like, how else do you explain someone's heart growing? Like, you can't get a heart boner.
Right.
Like, that doesn't happen. That shit doesn't stretch.
And
so
like, they literally call it, there's like cause of death, his heart grew 3 sizes. It's like, yes. Yeah, no. We're not going to say it exploded. We're going to specifically remind you it grew 3 sizes. I love it.
Yeah. So we started to get into some of the, those side characters. We talked about Mayor McBean. We talked about the deputy and the sheriff. So in a section that we're going to call the news of Newville, Danny, was there any 1 or 2 or 3 or however many you'd like to talk about that you'd like to mention here of characters?
I didn't even think about it until you said it, and then I just saw all the pieces line up when you're talking about it being like a Hallmark movie, and I start thinking about all of these characters and how they fit those tropes. And I loved Doc Zeus.
Mhm.
I thought okay, Zeus, right? That's funny. But also, the idea where it's like, oh yeah, no, you've got the town drunk, but he's the one guy who actually knows what's going on, and
Right.
he's just kind of stumbling through everything, but ends up kind of halfway helping out, halfway saving the day with his hunting rifle out there. He was a lot of fun. They give him just a little bit of a tragic backstory, just to remind,
Mhm.
or I mean, it's a very tragic backstory. We only get a little bit of it, and just to remind you that it is still a horror movie, But he was a. It's weird to say he was comic relief because everybody's character was comical in
Yeah.
how tropey they were, but if all things are on a spectrum and like the way everybody is the middle, then he still slides far enough over to be comic relief
Right.
as this town drunk, because the sheriff says, "You've been drunk for 20 years." He's been drunk for 11 years 4 days. It's like yes, accurate. Okay, I love it. Yes, details matter. So I liked him a lot, and I loved the main little like sheriff's deputy, Burke.
Yeah.
Burke was just with his, the time when he was trying to sing Jingle Bells, and he's dashing
Yes.
through the snow in a one horse open sleigh. Oreos won't go. and then he eventually just abandons it and starts singing Dreidel Dreidel. And that was when we learned that the Grinch isn't just against or the mean one isn't just against Christmas. He hates all holiday cheer.
Yes.
He is
Equal opportunity murderer.
yes. He was great. He did a great job with the little small town guy, bumbling, fumbling, meeting the hot girl who came back the first time when he can't, ma'am, miss that whole thing.
Right.
He did a really good job, but my absolute favorite moment with him was the one time when he's supposed to deliver just this horribly serious line, but just because of the way that everything had happened, it was so hard to take it seriously. He goes to the sheriff and he goes, "I tracked down where that website was made from." And the sheriff's, "Oh, I thought that was buried deep." And he takes that dramatic pause and goes, "I am a trained investigator."
Yes.
And I was like, "Yes, you are. Trained in Newville, and you know how to work the internet. We're all so proud of you." He just he did a really good job of being, like I said, just kind of stumbling, bumbling guy, wannabe hero, guy who reminds everybody what Christmas is about. He really rounded out that whole Hallmark thing that they were after with it, and I did like him a lot.
He also had, aside from the bar scene, my favorite moment in the movie where he says that he's happy she forgave him. And she goes, "Forgave you for what?" And he goes, "For passing off that store-bought matzo ball soup for homemade." I am a sucker for matzo ball soup. I absolutely love Jewish food. So just around this time every year, the wife and I will make latkes. So it's just about that time. We are huge into the Jewish food. So it was nice to see my favorite soup of all time mentioned in a movie. How often do you hear matzo ball soup mentioned in a movie? But then also that he made a joke about it. He was great. You did mention my favorite, which was Deputy Chase, or Burke. Sorry, Burke.
No,
his name was Chase Mullins.
Yes.
So, who am I going to talk about here? You know what? Her dad was not in the movie for long, but he was really funny.
Yeah.
And to me, there was a chemistry there between her and her dad, where it did feel like a healthy relationship had been born out of that trauma, unfortunately. Where like anything that she needed, he was there for. And I really loved that this holiday that had been like a source of trauma for her, he had found a way to keep it alive for her. Because as a little kid, That's the sort of thing where it's like, okay, well, Christmas is ruined for me now.
Right.
And Dad found a way to keep it fresh for you. Dad found a way to keep it relevant for you. So I really love that he looked and sounded and acted like a loving father, where when he died so early, like I was expecting him to die, but I wasn't expecting him to die that early. I thought it was going to be deep into the movie. And so it did kind of hit a little bit, like, I mean, it's not the kind of movie that's going to make you shed a tear, but it was the sort of thing where I was like, oh fuck, he died. I really wanted to see more of him.
And that he was played by one of the writers. That was Flip Kobler, playing her dad.
Yeah. So I mean, he clearly understood the character,
right?
And then the last person that I'll mention is Amy Schumacher, not Amy Schumer, but Amy Schumacher, who played Mayor McBean, who I was like, man, that name sounds so familiar, and it is. Sylvester McMonkey McBean.
Yes.
From the Sneetches and other stories.
I think he's the guy who sold the machine that put the stars on and took the stars off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Sylvester McMonkey McBean, who Mayor McBean is named after. She was fantastic at the Dirtbag.
Yeah, she really was.
She played the part really, really well. You get that vibe from her the moment you see her campaigning, and so maybe that's just like the bias in me, where like I don't trust politicians, but I think that she leaned into that, where it was almost like shit. What's the name of the mayor in Back to the Future? Goldie. I can't remember his name. Yeah. That mayor. Now that's an idea. That guy, like, she played him like that, but in 1985.
Right.
Where like he had that sort of slimy thing going on. Like he'd been in politics so long. She's only just been in politics. This is her like first re-election campaign. And so she played that part, I think, really well when it came out that she and the sheriff had colluded to kind of lure these people, these hikers here. I was not shocked at all. Not at all. And I don't think I was supposed to be. That was not supposed to be like aha, look at this moment. It was just of course. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's because of how she played it, because she very well could have played it as like a mayor who was trying to do something good for the city, and she never once played it that way. She always played her like a sleazeball. So good on her for that.
And I mean, so one thing that's really cool is we really got a chance to talk about all of the characters right there, because this is a very small cast, and it's always great when we can look at a movie and be like, okay, what character stood out for you? And we have something positive to say about all of them. But there is one very special character that we've yet to talk about. And in a section that we're calling He's a Mean One, we've got to talk about the actual mean one, played by none other than Art the Clown himself, David Howard Thornton, an Alabama boy from North Alabama. He is the mean one. What did you think about this portrayal of the Grinch?
I am so happy that it wasn't Art the Clown.
Yeah.
Not because I don't think that it would have gelled, because I think it would have, but because it kind of shows that there's a lot more to Art the Clown and the mean one than just what's on paper.
Right.
Because there is actual acting going on here. It's not just putting on some makeup and then getting out there and slashing people, because he plays the character very, very differently. There's still some of that like Mickey Mousing stuff that he does in the Terrifier movies, but it's less sadistic and more animalistic, which is kind of weird to say, because the mean one is definitely sadistic. But where Art the Clown plays like a psychopath, this guy plays like a cartoon character.
Yeah.
And that my favorite moment is when he's doing like the finger walk on the floor.
Straight out of the animated
movie. Like I could hear Boris Karloff's voice narrating that scene. And like it's not a physically demanding scene. You just don't show him like his knees are on the floor.
Right.
But he played it as if he was actually walking on his fingertips. And it's the kind of thing where, like, sure, anyone can do it, but can they? Because if I did it, I can guarantee you I would fall flat fuck on my face and it wouldn't fucking work. They'd be like, who the fuck is that guy? Get him the fuck out of that costume. It worked, not just because he had the prosthetics and all that on, but he actually transformed into the Grinch. To me, I prefer this Grinch. I'm going to be dragged here, but I prefer it to Jim Carrey.
Okay.
All right. I got to be honest. I prefer it to Jim Carrey. And I love Jim Carrey. He's a childhood hero of mine. But to me, he captured the Grinch in a way that I don't think that 2003, 4, 2, whatever that Grinch version that came out then was. This is infinitely better than that movie. There's a maniacal sort of something that Thornton kind of taps into. And I think that that's necessary, not just for the Grinch, but for Dr. Seuss.
Right.
I think that there's a little bit of horror in every Dr. Seuss drawing. And I've said it over and over again. I'm pretty sure I've said it on the show. I think that the scariest home invasion story is not The Strangers. It's The Cat in the Hat. That is the scariest, craziest home invasion story. Can you imagine a 6-foot tall cat coming into your house? He's fucking cracked out. You can see it in his eyes. And he brings 2 other crackheads with him. And they hold you hostage. And they're telling you, look at your fish. Your fish is talking. He's telling you not to do this, but you want to do it. That's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And he captures that essence of the horror of childhood in this. And maybe I'm reading too much into it. I'm sure I am, because that's like my thing.
Right.
But Thornton fucking knocked it out of the park. This is now going to become one of my Christmas mainstays. Like, I am going to watch this every year. It's going to be a double feature with Santa's Sleigh.
Yeah, the way that he played the Grinch, and it's funny that you talk about the Jim Carrey Grinch, because there were so many times, whereas when we were younger, that Boris Karloff Grinch was kind of the one that was ubiquitous. That was the one everybody talked about. Like, if you bought anything Grinch themed, it was always that one. That's what was on there. Now, for, a lot of teachers I work with and stuff, like, if we're talking about the Grinch, their default setting is they're talking about Jim Carrey's Grinch. And so that's great. That makes sense. I get that. I love the Jim Carrey Grinch movie. And so what was funny about watching this was how many times some of those things you were talking about where he is cartoonish. And yes, you can say that you like it better than Jim Carrey's, which I kind of do too, just because this is more my style. But you could tell that he must have watched that. That's Ron Howard, right? Like that Ron Howard Grinch 15, 16, 20 times, and just focused on the way that Jim Carrey moved and the things that he did in that movie, because there are so many. I just watched that with my class. I watched Jim Carrey's Grinch and this one in the same day yesterday. And so seeing them essentially in a double feature over the course of 12 hours, it was real easy to pick out just body movements and things he was doing that were obviously based on that Jim Carrey Grinch, which is not a bad thing when you've got to look at who the audience for this movie is going to be. And it's going to be a lot of people that is their Grinch, not Boris Karloff, but Jim Carrey, not an animated one, but this live action one moving in ways that are just comedic. And you could tell he studied that, but when you watched him, it wasn't, oh, he's trying to be Jim Carrey. It was, oh, he's just trying to be the Grinch. And that's how the Grinch moves. And even when you go back to the Dr. Seuss book and you see all those times he's standing and, he does the whole hand
the
on his
hands
hip
on
thing with the elbow pointed straight back, like all those things that people think about Jim Carrey doing, those are illustrated in that original book. You get the cartoon version of him doing that. We just continue to get evolutions of people making these Grinchy movements their own. And Thornton knocked that out of the park. It would have been easy to, like you said a while back, put the makeup on and then just be a movie killer. It could have been makeup's on. This is my mask. Now I'm just Jason. Now I'm just Michael Myers. And he could have just slashed people and we would have watched it and gone, God, this could have been so much fucking better. But they didn't do that. They took it and he was the Grinch as a killer. He walked on his fingertips. He made the big, ridiculous movements as he's swinging stuff around. And he was a cartoon character. And it was amazing. And then he would just, it was like that switch would flip. And then he would become this killer. Another element of it, you used the word earlier, cryptid. This idea that, she gets the blurry photo of him running by, like she's trying to convince everybody that he's real. He's out there. I've seen him. He killed my mom. It's the horror movie version of those shirts that say like Bigfoot's real and he tried to suck my dick, like she, I didn't make that up. Those exist. So they make him into like this town cryptid. And then they up the ante again. And this motherfucker is taking shells. I mean, just slugs to the back and then turning around and just giving evil looks and running off. They managed to take those elements and make him superhuman as well, which adds credence to that cryptid theory. I also love that they never tried to give us any backstory. They weren't like, oh, well, he's the offspring of some sort of wood nymph and a bear or something like that. Yeah, no, he just is. Yeah, he's just the mean one. He lives up there on that mountain, and because you and your mom called him a monster, now he hates Christmas. And that's just who he is now. So they did a lot of great stuff. They didn't try to establish any background mythos on who he was. We got just what we needed out of the people. And I love that because that's what we needed out of him. We just needed him to be cool. And he was. And I think another thing that's amazing about this is of that $600,000, I can only assume at least 20% of it went into those prosthetics because
they looked fantastic.
They looked fucking good. Yes, like the way his face was done up and everything, you could obviously tell he was the Grinch, but they weren't shooting to make him look just like Jim Carrey, which would have been impossible because anybody who's ever read or seen anything about that, there's a large chunk of the faces he makes that's just Jim Carrey's face. Right. So they didn't try to recreate that. They were just like, we need him to look like the Grinch and we want it to look good. And they pulled that off in spades. He looked awesome. He never really talked, which was cool. We got some growls.
Right. I did like the growling.
Yeah, but the growling and I mean just those guttural screams. I really, and then when it comes down to just the acting chops of what you can do without talking, at the end, she's sitting over him with the knife and she's about to stab him, realizes he's still wearing the necklace that she gave him 20 years ago and drops the Harry Potter line, after all these years. And I was like, I swear to God, if the one word he says in this whole movie is always. So he, and so then we get the flashback to that night and we get it from his perspective, which is, she really did kind of warm his heart and maybe change things in that moment. But then when the mom attacked him and he accidentally killed her, we got to see him freaking out about the fact that Cindy's mom died. And he gave that in those couple of seconds. You read it on him. It's like, oh God, he did not want this to happen, and he is traumatized by it. Then she calls him a monster. Then we get that one scene where we kind of watch him evolve from whatever it was that he was when she saw him and gave him the necklace, and his eyes change, and he's just kind of sitting there like gritting his teeth. That could have been super corny. And so, but I think the reason it wasn't is because of how good Thornton is with that makeup on. There are some people who you can pile under layers and layers and layers of prosthetic and makeup, but they're so fucking good under it that they still shine through. Ron Perlman is one of those guys.
Yeah.
You know, like you go back to Beauty and the Beast, you go to Hellboy, you go to those things. He always manages to shine through all of that stuff.
I was actually going to say Doug Jones, but
Doug Jones, Doug Jones is, I mean, and that's basically all Doug Jones has done, right? I mean, but it's always great. Like The Shape of Water is a weird fucking movie, but I was still emotionally connected to the fish guy, right? Like,
absolutely,
you know, and that's what Thornton was able to give us in this portrayal of the Grinch. In that moment, you got 20 years of unprocessed trauma that this thing is living through. And that all came through in this one scene that was 10 seconds long and could have been amazingly corny. And it happened. And I was like, damn, that was great. And I hope that more and more people, I hope that he keeps doing these great low budget like horror movies like this, but I hope he gets a chance to be in front of a wider audience doing what he does, because he has now portrayed two iconic characters, and this movie doesn't have the weight that Terrifier has.
Right.
But this is the type of movie that is 2, 3, 5 years from now, people are going to dig this one up and be like, how did we miss this? How did this one slip through the cracks? Because this is a diamond in the rough of B-level Christmas horror movies.
It really is. Yeah. And I agree with that. Because it's only been a year since this one came out.
Yeah.
And I'm already down on myself. Like, how the fuck did I miss this?
Yeah.
Because it really is that good. Question, did you like the Illumination Grinch movie?
I don't hate
the
it.
Cumberbatch one?
I got nothing against it. It's just, I don't know. It's the Grinch doesn't have enough edge in it for me. Like he's like, I need him to be more than just like a little grumpy, you know, like I like this. There's the scene in the Jim Carrey one where he's just reading the phone book and screaming that he hates them. Like I need that level of edge out of my Grinch. And I mean, it's fine, but you know, he's like at one point out grocery shopping, like in Whoville. Like, no, I want him to hate Whoville just all the time and all of the people in it. So it is what it is. My kids like it. That's, you know, that's their generation of the Grinch. Like when my kids say they want to watch the Grinch, that's the one they're talking about wanting to watch, is the Illumination.
Got you. All right. Interesting. Final segment before we go into our ratings, which we haven't discussed yet.
Right.
In a segment that Daniel beautifully named Jing Tinglers and Tartinkas, which are gifts, instruments that are gifted in the original How the Grinch Stole Christmas. We're going to talk about its Christmasosity, Christmasness.
Yeah. I feel like we kicked this word around 15 different times last year too. But yeah, let's go with Christmasity.
Christmasity. There we go. So, how do you feel this movie does as a Christmas movie?
I think it's perfect. I think that as a Christmas movie, like there's there's no argument here. Oh, is the Mean One a Christmas movie? Like, no, we don't need to do that, right? Like, yes, it's a Christmas movie. It's a horror Christmas movie. It's a Hallmark Christmas movie. It's a party Christmas movie. It's a drunken 2 a.m. I need something on the TV to fall asleep Christmas movie. It is everything. You've got the town, the town that's forgotten the meaning of Christmas and the outsider who reminds them. You've got the big bad who hates Christmas and never wants to see it come around again. Everything, every single piece of this movie is a Christmas trope, down to the fact that her weapons at the end are Christmas decorations. There is absolutely no denying this, just on a rating scale of 1 to 10 on what's the Christmasity of this movie. It's an 11. Everything about this revolves around Christmas. Christmas has its fingers in everything except for the mayor's reelection campaign. That's the one thing that's not Christmas specific in the entire movie. And, because
in fact, makes no sense, because wouldn't it be in November?
Right. Like, shouldn't it have ended a month ago?
Yeah,
Or
she
she
would
was
have just
campaigning
gotten
way in advance. It's like, I know I just got elected, but hey, y'all. Yeah, no, everything about this screams Christmas. It's like I said, it screams every type of Christmas. There's no way around that one.
I agree. It's Christmasosity, or whatever it was.
Christmasity.
Christmasity is through the roof. That meter, whatever Christmasity meter there is, like it's
it grew 3 sizes.
It grew 3 sizes.
It grew
and
3
exploded.
sizes. The Christmasity meter grew 3 sizes for this movie.
And even when you do the thing that I do, where I always defend Die Hard as a Christmas movie, I say that the common themes for Christmas movies, it's present here, right? It's about reconnecting with family. It's about moving past family trauma, family issues. All of that is here, with the added cryptid survival that you normally don't see in Christmas movies. There's snow, there's mountains, there's holly and mistletoe, and there's Hanukkah.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
so
it's the holiday movie in general.
To me, it is a holiday spectacular. That I think this could bring world peace. I think that if we all could get along the way that Cindy and Burke do, where they can look past each other's differences and say, hey, you celebrate Christmas, I celebrate Hanukkah, and yet here we are together enjoying a walk through this market.
Right.
There's hope for us yet.
Yeah, it really does just check every single box. This is, there's I watched a movie sometime back in the summer called The Lodge, and that's one that like takes place around Christmas time, but that would be one where the Christmasity meter is just kind of buried because it doesn't go past the fact that it takes place at Christmas time. I did the same thing with back in October. I watched Await Further Instructions. Outside of the fact that it takes place like on Christmas Day, it could have been anywhere and it would have happened exactly the same. Because that's what I always kind of look at in whether or not something is a Christmas movie is could everything that happened here happen in a completely different month and played out exactly the same? And for this one, no, it couldn't have, because you need the onus of the catalyst, not onus. You need the catalyst of people listening to Christmas music and putting up the decorations to piss this guy off, to bring him to you. You need those things. He's wearing a damn Santa suit. Like this is definitely a Christmas movie. So yeah, like I said, definitely grew 3 sizes that day.
Yeah. And you can disagree and be wrong. Just be okay with that.
So that gets us to the end. Right?
Yep.
I mean, it's time to rate this thing. So if you're new to the show or you just need a quick reminder, we have been gone for a little while. We rate every movie only against itself. We're not looking at how good this movie is in the lexicon of horror movies. We're saying for what they set out to do, how good is this movie? So so we do every time we do a movie with a unique rating scale that we change every time. So Dave, out of a possible 5 candy cane striped shotguns, what do you give the mean one?
I was waffling back and forth on what to give it. I'm gonna go really high here. Higher than I initially thought. I'm gonna go 4.5 candy cane striped shotguns, because I think that this movie is really, really, really fun. And the only drawback to it is that it is so good that it's better than a B movie, but its budget prohibits it from being better than a B movie. So it kind of exists in this weird world where, like, I want it to have a bigger budget because I want the special effects to be better. I want the lighting and the production and everything to be just a little bit better. But then it probably would lose its charm. So I feel like it has to be either a little bit worse or just a little bit better. And it's kind of sitting in this weird place where it's like, it either has to be perfect or it has to be more flawed.
Right.
And it's a weird place to be.
I know exactly kind of the inner turmoil you're having right now, because that's exactly where I've sat with it. And so I too am comfortable going 4.5 candy cane striped shotguns, because it's better than a sci-fi original. 100%. It's better than a sci-fi original, but it's shot and looks like a sci-fi movie, a sci-fi original. So yeah, I need them to triple the budget and still keep the charm, which might be impossible. Or I need them to tone it down and make it to where I'm laughing at the movie.
Yes.
But then I'm still probably not going to go up to 5, right? So you're right. There's like this bizarre nebulous space where it's almost like a 4.5 is a perfect rating for a movie like this. It's like it's in some sort of weird movie purgatory where that last half of a candy cane striped shotgun is always just out of reach. Like it can't get it, because then the reality of what this movie is shattered. And so it's weird, because I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, like it's perfect for what it wanted to be, but I want it to be, I can't give it that last half star because I want it to be a little bit better. Like I just want a couple tweaks that make it that little bit better. But yeah, no, 4.5. It is just a solidly fun, great Christmas horror movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it doesn't ever want to be anything more than that. And if you want it to be more than that, the problem is not the movie. The problem is you.
Right.
This is exactly what it is, and it's exactly what it needs to be, and it's exactly what it will be year after year, because it's definitely getting on our TV every year.
Oh yeah, mine too. Mine too, without a doubt. So there you have it.
Yeah.
Solidly a 4.5, unanimous across the board for the mean one. Get out and check this thing out. I mean, support the people who made this movie, because it's great. It's a lot of fun. If you've enjoyed this, make sure you head over to shiverpod.com, where you can find links to all of our social media outlets. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We use Instagram the most. I've had a couple things kind of break through the static here lately. So if you are new to the show and you're just now listening because of our last Christmas post that went decently viral on Instagram, welcome. We're glad to have you. Now, the sad news is, as we've talked about, Christmas holiday season scheduling is a bitch when you're a teacher and a parent and you've got family. So there is a strong possibility that this is our last episode of 2023. We're not 100% sure yet, but we're pretty sure it might be. So if you are listening now, You've got the next couple weeks to go back, catch up on anything you've missed. Our entire back catalog can be found anywhere you get your podcast. If you listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, any of those apps that allow you to rate, we'd love a 5-star rating. We'd love some feedback. Let us know what you think we could do better, what we should do differently, or if you just want to be on the show, because we're always looking for guests. So get out there, get that done. It is the holiday season. So regardless of what you celebrate, happy everything to you. We're very happy to have all of you as listeners. It's been a great year for Shiver. 2023 has been really good for us. Our first in-person meetup, 2023 was a great year for horror movies. We've met some great people through doing this show. I mean, it's been fantastic. So let me just end my part here by saying, if you are friends with us, if you are new to the show, if you know us in person, if you just know us through your headphones, we love and appreciate every one of y'all. This continues to be a spectacular ride. There is a bunch of great stuff on deck for 2024. I mean, this is the type of thing that's got the steam to keep going. So we hope you guys keep listening.
Absolutely. So on behalf of all of us here at Shiver, fright you very much.